Chapter 6. What can they do now? Joe, Moonface, Silky and the saucepan sat down by the hole and thought hard. Silky began to cry. The saucepan man looked most uncomfortable. He was very fond of Silky. Silky, please do forgive me for being so careless, he said in a small voice. I didn't mean to do this. Don't cry. You make me feel dreadful. It's all right, sobbed Silky, borrowing Moonface's handkerchief. I know you didn't mean to, but I can't help feeling that when I think I won't ever be able to see my dear little room in the faraway tree any more. The saucepan man began to cry too. Tears dripped and splashed into his saucepans and kettles. He put his arm around Silky, and 2 or 3 kettles stuck into her. Don't, she said. You're sticking into me. Moonface, Joe, can't you think of something to do? Can we possibly squeeze down if we hold our breath and make ourselves as small as we can? Quite impossible, said Moonface gloomily. They heard a voice, and soon a head popped up out of the hole in the cloud. It was Rick. He stared in surprise at the 4 enormous people sitting by the hole. He climbed up and stood beside them, looking very, very small. Then up came Beth and Franny. Their eyes nearly fell out of their sockets when they saw how big Joe and his friends were. What happened? Cried Rick. We got worried because you didn't come home, Joe, so we climbed up to see where you were. But why are you so enormous? Joe told them. Silky sobbed into Moonface's hanky. Beth put her arm around her. It was funny to feel Silky so very big. Beth's arm only went halfway round Silky's waist. And now, you see, we can't get back down the hole, said Joe. I know what we can do, said Rick suddenly. What? Cried everyone hopefully. Well, rub the hole with the spell, and it will get bigger, of course, said Rick. Then you can all be able to get down it. Why ever didn't we think of that before? Cried Joe, jumping up. Saucepan, where's the can with the spell in it? He picked up the can, but, it was completely empty. Every single drop had been spilt when Saucepan had fallen over. Well, never mind, said Moonface, cheering up. We can go and buy some more from the goblin. Come on. They all set off, Rick, Beth and Franny, looking very small indeed next to the others. They went up to the goblin who had sold them the spell. Please, can we have another can of that spell you sold us just now? Asked Moonface, holding out an empty can. I don't have a drop left, said the goblin, and I can't make any more till the full moon comes. It can only be made in moonlight. Everyone looked so miserable that the goblin felt very sorry for them. Why do you look so unhappy? He said. What has happened? Joe told him everything. The goblin listened with interest. Then he smiled. Well, my dear, he said, if you can get a spell to make the hole big, why don't you buy a spell to make yourself small? My brother, the green goblin over there, sells that kind of spell. Only be careful not to put too much on yourselves, otherwise you may go smaller than you mean to. They went over to the green goblin. He was yelling at the top of his voice, buy my wonderful and most amazing spells. It will make anything as small as you like. Do you have an enemy? Dab them with this and see him shrink into the size of a mouse. Is your nose too big? Dab it with this and make it the right size. Oh, wonderful, astonishing, amazing. Everyone hurried up. Moonface took some money out of his big bag. I'll have the spell, please, he said. The Green Goblin gave him a can. The spell in it looked rather like paint, just as the other one had. Now, go slowly, said the Goblin. You don't want to get too small. Try a little at a time. Moonface dabbed a little on Silky. She went a bit smaller at once. He dabbed again. She went smaller still. Is she the right size yet? Asked Moonface. Everyone stared at Silky. Not quite, said Beth, but she is almost. Moonface, she is almost, Moonface, so be careful with your next dab. Moonface was very careful. At the next dab of the spell, Silky went to the exact right size. She was so pleased. Now you, Joe, said Moonface. So he dabbed Joe and got Joe back to the right size again too. Then he tried dabbing the Saucepan Man, and soon got him right. His kettles and saucepans went right, too. It was funny to watch them. Now I'll do you, Moonface, said Joe. No thanks, I'll do myself, said Moonface. He dabbed the spell onto himself and shrank smaller. He dabbed again and went smaller still. Then he stopped dabbing and put the brush down. You're not quite your ordinary size yet, said Joe. I know, said Moonface, but I always thought I was a bit on the short side. Now I'm just about right. I always wanted to be a little taller. I shan't dab myself any more. Everyone laughed. It was funny to see Moonface a bit taller than usual. As they stood there and laughed, a curious cold wind began to blow. Moonface looked around and then began to shout, Quick, quick, the land of spells is on the move. Hurry before we get left behind. Everybody got a shock. Wow, it would never do to be left behind, just as everyone had got small enough to get down the hole in the clouds. They set off to the hole. The wind blew more and more strongly, and suddenly the sun went out. It was as if somebody had blown it out. Joe thought at once. Darkness fell on the land of spells. Joe thought. At once darkness fell on the land of spells. Hold hands, cried Joe. We'll lose one another if we don't. They all took hold of one another's hands and called out their names to make sure everyone was there. They stumbled on through the darkness. Here's the hole, cried Joe at last, and down they went. He felt the ladder and climbed down. He found the ladder and climbed down that. Too, the others followed one by one, pushing close behind in the dark, longing to get down to the faraway tree. They knew so well. Here's the hole, cried Joe at last, and down he went. He felt the ladder and climbed down it. The others followed one by one, pushing close behind in the dark, longing to get down to the faraway tree. They knew so well. How lovely it would be to sit in Moonface's room and feel safe. But down at the bottom of the ladder there was no faraway tree. Instead, to Joe's surprise, there was a narrow passage lit by swinging green lanterns. Oh my goodness, he said to the others. What's this? Where's the faraway tree? We've come down the wrong hole, groaned Moonface. Oh goodness, what bad luck. Well, where are we? Asked Rick in wonder. I don't know, said Moonface. We'd better follow this passage and see where it leads to. It's no use climbing back up and trying to find the right hole. We'd never find it in the dark, and anyway, I'm pretty sure the land of spells has moved on by now. Everyone felt very miserable. Joe led the way down the passage. It twisted and turned, went up and down steps, and it was lit here and there by green lanterns swinging from the roof. At last they came to a big yellow door. At last they came to a big yellow door. On it was a blue knocker, a blue bell, a blue mailbox, and a blue notice that said, "Mr. Changeabout, knock once, ring twice, and rattle the mailbox." Joe knocked once, very loudly. Then he rang twice, and everybody heard the doorbell going, ring, ring. Then he rattled the mailbox. The door didn't open. It completely disappeared. It was so peculiar. 1 minute it was there, and the next it had gone, and there was nothing in front of them. They could see right into the big underground room. At the end of it, by a roaring fire, sat a round, fat person. "That must be Mr. Changeabout," whispered Rick. "Dare we go in?"